back again with another NFL Draftkings video, this time for our showdown slate for Sunday Night Football between the Seattle Seahawks and my very own Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be a very competitive game. Obviously, if Russell Wilson was in for the Seahawks, it would probably be a little bit closer of a spread, but Steelers right now going to be favored by 5 points in this home matchup, and overall, fandom aside, this is going to be a good game. I mean, you have a very good offense on one side in the Seattle Seahawks that have a huge question mark now that Russell Wilson's out. And on the other side, you have a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is all over the place. I mean, some weeks they look like one of the best teams in the NFL, like when they took down the Bills in week 1. And sometimes they look like complete dog shit. So never know what to expect from them. Going to be an interesting affair. And on DraftKings, obviously have some big GPPs as well. So lots of money to be made, lots to go over for this game. So we're going to cover our injury report, our stud options for each team, our favorite value plays, and of course our selections for the captain slot. So without further delay, let's hop right into the picks for Sunday Night Football. So starting off with an injury report with the Seahawks side of things, we have Russell Wilson on IR, obviously not playing quarterback, well, not for quite some time. We already have Chris Carson rolled out, and DK Metcalf as of right now is questionable, has been limited to this point in practice, but is expected to play per the beat reporter of the Seahawks. On the Steelers side of things, we have Juju Smith-Schuster out for the year, just got shoulder surgery, so one of my favorite players in the NFL. Obviously hope he comes back very well next year if the Steelers are able to re-sign him. In terms of any other injuries, we have Chase Claypool and James Washington as questionable, but both are expected to suit up. So Steelers relatively healthy in this affair. Obviously the Seahawks, outside Russell Wilson and Chris Carson, relatively healthy. Let's talk about the game flow we have going on here. We have a 42.5 point over-under, one of the lower scoring games on the slate. Again, a lot of that has to do with the Steelers defense, also with Geno Smith being hurt. Also to this point, the Steelers offense hasn't looked very good, so lots of question marks on the offensive side of the ball. And as of right now, the Steelers favored by just 5 points in the over-under. In terms of me, I think the Steelers win by more than 5 points. I think it ends up being a 10 or a 14-point victory, and the Seahawks just have too many question marks. Obviously with Russell Wilson not going to be playing, Geno Smith hasn't had starting time in quite some time, and overall that defense has a ton of question marks as well. So if they don't have that firepower on offense, I don't see how they end up being competitive in this game. And again, even putting my fandom aside, the Steelers have a much better team than the Steelers without Russell Wilson. So with all that being said, let's hop right into our start options for each team. So with the Seahawks at number 3, we have Gerald Everett at $4,600, expected to be owned at just 12.7% of lineup. So not going to be chalk by any means, but somebody who's returning from injury and quite frankly is just underpriced for this slate. He's clearly the number 1 tight end for this team, is going to play essentially every snap in this game, and also somebody who has a lot of yards after catch upside. He's relatively athletic. Again, Geno Smith, brand new quarterback into this offense. We have no idea who his favorite targets are going to be. Perhaps him and Everett have a rapport that we don't know about. So again, a lot of this just comes down to the price tag here. $4,600 for him is a very good price. At number 2, we have DK Metcalf, who at $10,000, we cannot say the same thing about his price. Relatively overpriced on this slate, especially when we consider the injury that's coming in. But on this team, not many options to speak about in terms of fantasy production, right? At running back, we have Chris Carson, who's not going to be playing, but Alex Collins, who's also priced up for the occasion, over $6,000 on this slate. And the Pittsburgh Steelers defense against the run, one of, if not the best in the NFL. So I'm going to have to stick to the pass catchers on this team. And for me, DK Metcalf, even at $10,000, could pay off that price tag. Again, somebody who has a deep play threat, also very productive in the red zone. So not my favorite target on the slate. Expected to be owned at about 18.3% of lineups, only projected for 16.6 points. So somebody I'm probably going to match the field on. Not going to be fading by any means, but also not somebody that I'm thrilled about playing. But at number 1, we have Tyler Lockett, somebody I am thrilled about playing at $8,600, and it's just a complete misprice, right? At this point, I don't understand the DK algorithm in terms of pricing, especially for Showdown. You get some guys that are just wildly under or overpriced, and Metcalf's definitely overpriced, and Lockett is definitely underpriced for this slate. So definitely going to be chalk. I have him projected right now for 29.2% ownership at the flex spot, but well warranted at a 16.4% point projection. So Tyler Lockett, again, going to get it done in terms of PPR production, should see plenty of targets in this game. Also somebody who has a relatively good deep play threat. So again, Geno Smith, likely to look at the checkdowns a little bit more than the deep play threat because it will be his first start. So as a result, Tyler Lockett, no matter the game script, I see him having a good game. So he's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, despite being one of the highest owned plays. In terms of our Steelers stud options, at number 3, we have Chase Claypool at $8,800. Going to be a little bit under-owned compared to the other players on this team at just 14.9% ownership. Also projected for 17.6 points, which is awesome. But what I really like here is the matchup on defense. You have a Seahawks team that does not have a good secondary. Also a secondary that's relatively undersized. So Chase Claypool, obviously somebody who has very good size on the offensive side of the ball, very good at high pointing the ball. I expect him to get 1 or 2 deep passes in this game. Obviously, if one of them ends up being a touchdown, that kind of thing, could very well pay off his price tag. So like him there at number 3, but somebody I think is a little bit more consistent, I'm targeting a little bit more often in my lineups, is going to be Deontay Johnson there at number 2. So $9,800 on this slate. You could say I have him projected for a little bit more ownership at 16.8%, but that makes sense in my opinion. Somebody that I'm willing to get a little bit more leverage on. You can see I'm projected for significantly more points there at 19.6, and somebody who has not only higher PPR upside, but in this game against the Seahawks should absolutely be able to dice them up. We know Ben Roethlisberger, not somebody who likes to throw it deep, will do it when he has to just because he doesn't like taking hits. And whenever he ends up getting the ball quick, it's most likely going to be to Deontay Johnson. Again, Juju Smith-Schuster out for the year. So we know a lot of those short targets that were going to him in a slot probably going to go to Deontay Johnson. Might go to Pat Freiermuth, who we'll talk about here in a second, but going to be to the short route specialist. And Deontay Johnson was already one of the best players in the NFL at the wide receiver position, especially on a showdown slate where they're missing one of their best short down specialists as well. He's going to be an even better play. But at number 1, we have Najee Harris, and it's not even close. And again, the price tag is completely representative of that. They're at $11,800. Also garnering tons of ownership at 32.9%. So we're at least going to have to keep an eye on that. If he ends up coming in closer to 50% ownership, might have to start talking about a fade. But at 32.9% ownership, still going to be one of my favorite plays on the slate. Haven't projected for over 20 points. The only player on the slate I have projected for over 20 points, given the game total here at just 42.5 points. And somebody who not only is very productive on the ground, we saw that last week, averaged well over 5 yards a carry, really started to find his stride in terms of a rusher. Also somebody who has plenty of PPR upside as well. We've seen him get plenty of targets out of the backfield, had 14 catches just a few weeks ago. So somebody who not only has a very high floor, also very high upside if he goes and gets a few touchdowns. So even at $11,800, somebody I am prioritizing in my DFS lineups for Sunday night. Before we hop into my value picks here, just wanted to remind you guys about my NFL Patreon page, where you guys can get my projections for every player in this week. So not just for my Sunday night football picks. If you guys want picks for Sunday morning football, for Monday night football, for the main slate, whatever it is, make sure to check out the link in the description. You guys get projections for every player in the field, but not only just projected points, also the projected ownership, some game theory notes. You also get access to the GSLU community Discord, where you can ask me any questions, interact with the rest of the community, all of that. So again, one of the best values in the entire DFS community, just $1 for the month. So link will be in the description. Highly recommend you guys check it out and become a member of the community. And now for our value picks. At number 3, we have Pat Freiermuth, who I talked a little bit about before. At $2,800, he is one of the cheaper plays on the slate, but also somebody who's going to see plenty of snaps. So even though he's only expected to be owned at just 6.4% of lineups, somebody that I'll be using as plenty of value on the slate. Again, projected for 9.8 points, and somebody who's going to see more targets because Juju is out. Juju was a short route specialist, somebody who cut a lot of screen routes, a lot of routes over the middle, and people like Pat Freiermuth, people like Deontay Johnson are going to fill that role. So Freiermuth has already been a relatively productive receiver in this offense to begin his year. Again, a rookie from Penn State that they drafted relatively early in the draft. I expect him to have high touchdown upside in this game. And again, if he ends up getting there in the red zone, would very well be worth that $2,800 price tag. At number 2, we have James Washington at $5,200 and expected to be owned a little bit more. Again, he's going to be the number 3 wide receiver on this team, given that Juju is out for the year. So projected for 13.4 points, but I really like his ceiling. You know, he's somebody who has a deep play threat, somebody who's good at high punting the ball, even though he doesn't have a ton of size. So even at $5,200, I like him as a value play just because he gives you a huge ceiling at that price tag. But at number 1, our best value play on the slate, that is going to be the number 2 running back for the Seahawks, Travis Homer, who at $800 gives you a ton of salary flexibility. So going to be relatively owned. Again, 5.5% of lineups having Homer in it, but somebody who at his 7.6% point projection could very well end up smashing that. As of right now, Alex Collins is expected to be the starter, but he's more of a true rushing running back, not somebody who's a true 3-down back like Homer is. Homer's a better blocker, somebody who's good out of the backfield as a wide receiver, and of course can tote the ball as a running back. So if the Seahawks end up getting killed, end up getting behind early as I expect, again, the Steelers favorites here, they are at home. Also, just overall the better team in my opinion, especially without Russell Wilson. Homer can end up being called into action a little bit earlier than usual if they get behind early. And at $800, it doesn't take much to pay off. If he gets to 7 or 8 fantasy points, that could very end up being optimal for the Showdown slate. But now for my captain selections. At number 3, we have Tyler Lockett. Again, that is a very good price tag. They're at just $12,900 at the captain slot. Going to definitely garner ownership just because he's such a good point per dollar play. You see him there at 10.2% ownership. But again, that 24.6% point projection, more than worth it. Somebody's going to get plenty of PPR upside and somebody who's going to run a lot of short routes for Geno Smith. We don't expect him to put the ball down the field, or at least to push it down the field very often. So people like Lockett going to get a few more targets this game than usual. And number 2, we have Deontay Johnson at $14,700. So we just got done talking about how many more targets he's going to get with Juju Smith-Schuster out for the year. So even at $14,700, really like him on this slate. Also being relatively overlooked at the captain slot, single-digit ownership at captain, which makes him relatively easy to get leverage on in terms of ownership. So like that there. Also like the 28.4 point projection. So nothing really to hate on there. Relatively high floor, also really high ceiling for Johnson. But at number 1, our best captain play by far, going to be Najee Harrison. Comes with a little bit of opportunity cost at $17,700. Also relatively high owned at 20.6%, but his 30.3 point projection cannot be matched, right? Somebody who has a high floor in terms of PPR production, going to get plenty of targets out of the backfield, also going to get plenty of rushes, also in a very good game script. I mean, the Seahawks have led up 2 35-plus point performances to running backs at this point in the year, led up 50 points to Derrick Henry there in week 3. And I expect Najee Harris to have a massive game here. So even though he's priced up for the occasion, really like his chances here to have a ceiling performance. For my Sunday night football picks, guys, go ahead and let me know down in the comments who you've got as your favorite captain. Obviously, for me, that is going to be Najee Harris. Really like his upside in this game. Love the amount of touches that he's expected to see. But let me know if you agree. Let me know if you've got someone completely off the board. Would love to get some debate going down in the comments. And as always, guys, really appreciate the support. Really appreciate you coming by and enjoying the video. If you guys haven't already liked the video, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. On top of my Sunday night football content, we're going to have showdown slates for all the primetime games this weekend, as well as our regular main slate content, PGA Tour content, UFC content, and more. So make sure to subscribe so you guys don't miss anything. Without further delay, though, thank you guys for stopping by. As always, good luck with all of your lineups this weekend. And until next time, peace.